Welcome back to Ghosted, where we turn the quiet of grief into stories worth shouting. Because silence is haunting, so let's make some noise. Today I'm here with
Margot.
Everyone say hi, Margot.
Hi.
All right, Margot, who ghosted you?
My dad ghosted me 5.5 years ago.
And what was his name?
My dad's name was Stephen Allen Lichtenthal.
Everyone say hi, Stephen Allen Lichtenthal. Wow, 5 years ago, like right during COVID.
February 28th, right before COVID hit, actually. So I was lucky enough that I was able to have a funeral for him, which was not what a lot of other people could have said. So I think that I definitely made my peace more in hindsight because of that reason.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, I mean, he could have chose a better time to die, but
Yeah.
if
I'll
you're
let him know that.
yeah, can you next time you see him in 50,000 years, right?
Yeah,
Because
let's
we're
hope.
never dying.
Yeah, let's hope.
If you're comfortable sharing, how did he die?
So my dad died by suicide. It's funny because, well, it's not funny, but I had spoken with him 2.5 weeks before on my birthday.
Wait, when's your birthday?
My birthday's February 10th.
That's my brother's birthday, and I'm February 11th.
Love this for us. We're learning so much about it. So my dad was 56 years old. I was a senior in college, and I got a phone call one day from my sister. She said, "Are you sitting down?" And I feel like that's never a good thing to hear.
No, it's the "Can you
When
call me?" or "Are you sitting down?" are never
exactly,
good things.
yeah. And at first, I thought that it was just her calling me about a boy that was like giving her trouble. So I was like, "Leave me alone!" Like I was coming back from the bar, and
Stop! You were drinking, like you were out.
I was out. Like it was another normal Friday afternoon, like just at literally at happy hour, out with my friends, got back home, and it was around 9:30. I got a call from my sister, "Are you sitting down?" And I kept being like, what? And I thought it was my dog. I thought it was my grandma. Like that was the first thing I thought. I thought someone passed. And she just said, "Dad's gone." And like in the moment I feel like you black out with everything, but
Yeah.
then like when you like think about like I can like literally go through every single solitary second from that day now.
It's like a physical memory.
Exactly. And like I know your dad passed how long ago?
18 years ago.
But do you still feel that way?
Yeah, and it's crazy because so he died of cancer, but
Okay.
we knew he was going to die.
Right.
And I was actually at summer camp, and my mom brought us home, and we were with him when he died. And
Right.
it's the sound or the feeling is crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember, I know he sat us down and said, "I'm going to die." That I don't remember, but him dying, you can't forget
You
it.
can't forget that. No. And in the moment, I remember just like falling to my knees, screaming bloody murder. All of my friends were home because I lived in a house with 5 other girls. And just like the first thing that like came to my mind instantly in that moment was just like, oh my God, I am never going to be able to relate to anyone ever again. Like
Yeah.
that was literally like one of the first things that went through my mind. And I just kept screaming like, my dad, my dad, my dad. Like it just didn't feel real.
Did you know he struggled with mental health?
I did not know that my dad had depression or suffered from depression until I found out he passed away. In the moment, like when we were all sitting there, I had a cousin who lives in Philly on my mom's side, my mom's middle sister's daughter. Her and her husband came to the house to console me. And the second that like my sister said it, I was going through in my mind, like, what could it have possibly been? Like, it didn't really at first register, but I was just like, this was either a freak accident or it was not so much an accident.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with suicide, but when you think about it in that perspective. And when I settled for a second, my cousin sat me down and she said it was suicide. And that was kind of really all the information that I was given. I ended up having to sleep for the night at my house at school, and then the next morning my cousins and my boyfriend at the time and I drove home first thing.
Yeah.
And I got to my house and there was a million people already there.
I mean, suicide's so interesting because it's so stigmatized.
Yeah.
So, what was it like dealing with grief and also the stigma around suicide and how people react, when you tell them that's how he passed?
So interestingly enough, I vividly remember too that next morning I was sitting in the living room of my house at school with my friends, a couple of their boyfriends, and it had actually been dad's weekend for
Course, because
my
why wouldn't it be?
boyfriend's frat. So he left and his family was all still there. And one of my girlfriends, my roommates, had a younger brother in that frat. So her dad was in the house with us. And I remember saying to all of them, like, I know you're all going to have to tell people that he passed when I leave, but like, no one has to know how. And
Right,
in the heat of the moment, like, I did feel ashamed. I guess is, not a great word to use, but it's the truth. And like, I just was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to go about this. I need to process it for myself. But for right now, like, in my mind, I'm like, I can just go through all these things. Like, people don't have to know the real
right.
reason. But at the end of the day, like, everything comes to light. And like, I think once I finally was able to sit with it for long enough, I was like, okay,
Did it
like,
take you a while to say it?
I think I was trying to figure out, like, how do I say it in a way that's not so graphic? Like,
Right.
people often say it like harshly in a way where it's like, oh, they killed themselves. And it's like that to this day will never, like, my hair still stands up on my arms.
Mhm.
So my mom, my sister, and I, we would do a lot of group counseling things through Zoom because once COVID hit, like, we would
Right.
join groups. And one group, a couple had lost their son to suicide, and they were talking about in a segment like how they tell people who ask how their son passed. And one thing that resonated with me was that the mom said that, she says, my son lost his battle with depression. So
I
that was
love
kind
that.
of how I tried to word it. And like, the more that we got into some of these support groups and learning about like the mind map of somebody who lives with depression, just kind of talking about it in a way where it's like, these people are not in their right mind when they do these things.
Right.
So, saying someone died by suicide versus someone committed suicide is also a huge difference,
Yeah.
because committed makes it seem like it was a voluntary, like, lucid choice versus something that they did when they were at a really weak point and couldn't think clearly.
Yeah, that's something I've learned a lot at experience camps, like a grief camp I volunteer at, is they teach us to say died by suicide because you don't say like they committed cancer,
Right,
like they died by something. It
right,
is a disease and an illness. And so like it shouldn't be stigmatized in the way that it is. But
exactly.
obviously people need to like explain things.
Right. And so that's really interesting too. Do you have like, are a lot of your campers like just coming from all different experiences, or do they kind of try to group people who have similar
All
losses?
experiences. And
Okay.
actually, I think that's what I like so much and what's changed a lot over the years. Since the now decade that I've done it, a lot of kids at the beginning were car crash or cancer or heart attack. And I feel like that's really expanded to things that we don't talk about: murder, overdose, suicide. And it's interesting because some of the kids as they're younger know and
Right.
some don't and
Right.
come to learn when they get older.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting as a society that we make parents or caregivers feel like they have to lie about the reason that they died,
Hmm.
because even the fact that you didn't even know your dad struggled with depression, like depression in and of itself and mental health isn't talked about enough. It's so
Right.
stigmatized that we like hide from it sometimes, and so like these kids don't even know until they get older.
It's so interesting too, to that point, because my mom actually met a whole group of women that she's so close to this day through one of these support groups. Like, they go on vacations together, a lot of them are in relationships, including my mom now. And one of them had a daughter who was much younger, and to this day hadn't really shared the actual reason with her. And she's like, I'll let her know when she's older. And I guess there is that kind of question of like, when is it the right time? Is there ever a right time, a right age for like your child to be able to grasp the reality of that sort of situation?
Yeah.
And I guess I don't really know what the answer is. It's different for everybody,
Right.
but I think knowing now what I know from like going through the experience, I think allowing like your child to kind of come to terms with not, the act itself, but like the disease that
Right.
surrounds it is so important, because people, like you said, the stigmatization is so heavily involved in like people's lack of understanding of like the depth of what depression, can create,
Mhm.
that I think that that's something that like is what people need to focus on more when explaining it to somebody
Right.
else, especially someone younger who may not
Right.
understand.
Like we don't have to talk about the graphic way in which
Right.
someone took their own life, but
Right.
like there's a reason that someone was pushed to that point.
Exactly.
If you could talk to your dad now, what would you say? Especially with how like sudden it was.
I think I would ask him what point did he really feel like he couldn't bear the burden of what he was experiencing anymore? And why did he not feel like he could go to at least one person and just say, I can't do this myself anymore?
Right.
And I think like that's something my mom, my sister, and I will forever grapple with because we were the three people closest to him. And my mom, they had a beautiful marriage for almost 32 years. And of course, she knew that he had depression, but never once could
Not
she
like
have in
this.
her wildest dreams envisioned that this would be the result of it. So I think it would really be just like helping me understand like at what point did you feel like you were not enough or like you couldn't go on and you couldn't find one person to share that with. So I think that's something that I would definitely, if I had the opportunity, ask him or
How do
say to
you
him.
navigate that? Like within yourself of being like the answer to the question you'll never get, which with suicide, like that's probably the biggest one everyone has.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think obviously, like in the beginning, I went through like all of the different
Of
emotions.
course.
Like I really held on to, my anger for a while because it helped me not really like experience like the depths of my actual grief.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
once
fair.
I think also though for me specifically, like I was a psych major in college,
Of
which
course you were.
yeah.
You
And
know, because
like
like obviously, that is your senior year during
it's
COVID when you actually study this in depth.
it really is so interesting actually because I learned about depression and like mental illness all throughout high school and college, and you learn about, oh, what are the signs,
Right.
like what are like the little things, like, oh, they'll stop eating normally, they won't be interested in like activities that they once did. But like my dad was just such a complex person
Right.
who threw himself into his work. Like he was always working, like he was in finance, and he was working for people who didn't really like give him the gratitude for the efforts that he did, and
Right.
like it was something that he so externally attributed his value to, was
Mm-hmm.
like the way that other people viewed him. And I think for me, I was so aware of that I really tried to lean into, after like the anger subsided, like just accepting that this was something. I knew my dad, I knew the type of person he was, and if someone as pure and like genuine as that could commit something so obscene, there had to be something that was bigger than him.
Right.
So I think I really just tried to lean into like, this is something I'll never understand, and I have to be okay that it was something too big for him to bear. And like I just tried to accept that he did something that took away his pain.
Yeah. I mean, that's like so beautifully said to such
Thank
like
you.
a horrific thing. And I think too, like so many people who lose someone to suicide like grapple with similar questions.
Yeah.
And so like giving them that and being able to tell yourself that is like so beautifully healthy.
I think it's definitely, it changes with every given day.
Of course.
um, but I think all together, like something that I'm grateful for and a value that I did get from my dad is like he was so empathetic, and he always wanted to like learn about other people and like their experiences and understand other people because everyone's different, of course. And so that was kind of what I feel like I had to do for him, was like, I clearly can't understand that he did this act, and but what I can try to understand is that there was things he was dealing with that he just could not get through
Right.
on his own, and I can't judge that, and I'm lucky that that's not something I've had to
Right.
experience. So I guess that's kind of the way that I got myself through those beginning stages.
I mean, everything you've described your dad, like I see that in you and especially how you've honored him. Like, do you want to talk more about what you did after?
So my dad's name was Stephen Allen Lichtenthal. And when he passed away, my mom, my sister, and I really wanted to find a way to commemorate him. He, like I said, was like always a finance guy, but he had so many quirky little outlets and things that he would do to kind of, I guess, express himself.
Mhm.
One of those things was marble painting, which was something he did towards the end of his life. My mom and him went to a street fair once, and
So
he just
cute.
became, yeah, he was so infatuated. This person that was doing marble painting on silk scarves, and went home, ordered a book, taught himself how to do it, which was another thing. He could literally build or do anything you would
Wait,
ever
I is
ask.
this like a dad thing? Because this reminds me of my dad. Like, if he wanted to do something, he would
He
do
would
it
do
to
it.
the extreme.
He would do it. I remember, like, in middle school, I wanted one of those chairs that hangs from your
Yep.
ceiling. He figured out how to do that. I'm like, have you ever like been a like you don't know how to be a
You never
construction
touched
worker?
a
Yeah, like
drill in your
I'm like,
life.
what are you doing? But it worked, and I sat in the chair twice, but it was great. And so yeah, so he became a big marble painter. He would set up like a station in our garage. I would always walk into the garage and see him just like getting like so lost in it, which was so nice because I really only saw it towards the end. Um, but like it was something that like he really, I think, used as like a way to just kind of escape his thoughts. And so he had all of these paintings and like uh just like drafts that he had in our garage. So after he passed, we were like, okay, what's a way that we can kind of use these to emphasize, I guess the lighter parts of like what comes with depression. And his name was Stephen Allen Lichtenthal. So we thought, okay, why don't we make an organization and work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention? And we're going to call it Shine a Light. And the reason for that was because we wanted to kind of help people understand more of the nuances involved in mental health and suicide and suicide awareness. And so we were going to shine a light on different topics within
Love it
mental
so
health.
much.
And so we created candles, shine a light,
And that's what hits it now on the head with
right?
that one.
And we decorated all the candles with different marble paintings that he had created. We got them printed, and we donated a bunch of the proceeds to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And then I've always been very into writing and like just I don't know, like I've always been good at kind of articulating my words.
Mhm.
So I started an Instagram page that was called China Light, where I would talk about I would do mental health Mondays, and each Monday I would talk about a different topic related to mental health awareness. So whether it would be clinical depression versus situational depression,
Mhm.
or workplace trauma, or imposter syndrome, which is something that my dad shared with my mom before he passed. He was experiencing a lot. Um, and I would just kind of talk about these topics because I think a lot of people experience them, but no one can really like
Articulated.
articulate them or like put a name to what they're feeling.
And mental health is hard because you can't see it, right? Like, you understand if your partner breaks their leg, you're gonna sit with them for 6 weeks to help them navigate life with a broken leg, but when you have
Exactly.
mental health, people can't conceptualize it and grasp it and see it, so it's like, why would you sit at home with someone when they're depressed, when they're anxious? Why are
Exactly.
you changing your way of life to help them? And
Right.
so, I mean, it's beautiful to, like, give them something tangible.
And that's so interesting because to your point, it's like I think that everyone's programmed to look at, on the outside looking in, like, oh, someone who dies by suicide, they're selfish. Like
That's the common thing.
they're
How
taking the easy way
Yeah,
out.
like, how dare you do that to the people that you
Right.
love?
And even at my dad's Shiva, after someone came up to my mom and, of course was trying to show her like sympathy, but just looked at her and just said, like, it's so selfish. And
At
my
his Shiva?
yeah. And again, but it's not for a lack of like wanting to, be sympathetic. It's for a lack of awareness that like people don't understand the depths of what
Right.
this illness truly is. And that's also a generational thing.
Yeah.
Like, even my grandpa sees it differently than I do, but I think that that was what this Instagram and like these candles were really trying to communicate was like, okay, not everyone understands this and that's okay. So how can we make it a digestible way,
Yeah.
especially like during COVID when people are trapped at home and
Everyone is
people are
depressed.
depressed? Like Like these people can resonate with this more than ever now. And like,
Yeah.
I want to help somebody else not go through what I
Yeah.
experienced.
So funny you say that because from the moment my dad died, I said I never want anyone to feel like this again. And like for me, that was like raising money for cancer research, but like putting good into loss is something that's so special.
Hmm.
And not everyone does that. Not everyone has to do that, but like really the purpose behind it and like your life has changed regardless because of this.
Right.
So might as well do something good with it.
Right. Like, did you do anything? Do you feel like that really helped you commemorate your dad at the time? I know you
Yeah.
were much younger,
Yeah,
so
so he died of cancer. We're from outside of Boston,
okay.
and so he was treated at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and there's this big bike ride called the Pan Mass Challenge. It's like a 180 bike ride across Massachusetts, and he did it every year,
Wow.
actually before he got cancer, and then, like, he's a stubborn son of a bitch and still did it when he was sick, and his doctor saw him and was like, "Get off the bike, Jay, like,
That
this
was his
isn't good."
outlet though. That was something that he
Exactly.
did for himself.
And so they had a kids version, and
Mhm.
I immediately started fundraising, and like every single year I would raise like over $5,000, like get all my
Wow.
friends involved. And like now my career, like I work in healthcare, I
Nice.
volunteer at camp, like in a crazy way, like I am who I am because he died. And obviously I want my dad back, but like I love who I am.
Mhm.
And like that's okay to say that he's given me so
I
much.
could not resonate with that more. I think that like you recognize so many more finite aspects of your character when
Mhm.
you lose someone in such a tragic way, especially a parent or a
Mhm.
sibling or somebody like that close. I think that it's made me so much, I don't want to say less forgiving, because I think that I've become more forgiving in some aspects where like I understand and I see people more, empathetically. But I
Yep.
think I know the people who were there for me. I know the people that I care about and that care about me equally back. And like if I'm not receiving the same energy I'm putting out, I'm very, very, very okay with just
Mhm.
cutting ties,
Yeah.
because especially as you get older, like you keep your circle small. And I think that losing someone that close just puts so much into perspective of like you literally only have one life. Like you don't need to waste it on people who don't need to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think I, like, struggled with my identity for so
Oh
long
yeah.
because I was like, "Who am I if he didn't die?" Because everything in my life, like, genuinely, what I studied, what I did in college, like, the things I love and do now, like, so much of that is because he died and I wanted to give back and find purpose. But in like a meta way, I now feel like he's raised me and like
Right.
the things he's given me and like the people in my life who I love so much, I probably wouldn't have met them or been who I am without them.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, you know what, dad? Like maybe you dying gave me so much. And like that's
Right.
okay to say.
I think also like that's a really interesting point. It's like the experience cancer in healthcare. Like, who knows if you would have ended up being like a finance girly who
No,
you
I
could,
literally
you
would have been a
know?
bratty ass bitch.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's
It's
be
just like it
honest.
made you. It puts so much in perspective to the point where you're like, I'm not gonna waste my life doing X, Y, or Z because that's what like the path should be. It's like I'm gonna do something that fulfills me and makes
Yep.
me feel like, okay, I have purpose and I'm gonna use it to do something good and something that, can kind of like hold that legacy onward.
100%. And even with dating too, like being single at 27 in the city, like when I meet guys, I always think about like my mom taking care of my dad. And she's like, I would do it every day for the rest of my life. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if I could never, one, imagine me feeling that way about you, or like, God forbid, we have a kid who gets sick or a kid
Right.
who dies. Like, if you can't be that person, like, I would rather be alone.
Absolutely. No, I completely understand that. And like that's the thing. It's like these kinds of things, like they're so unprecedented that again, it puts so much into perspective where you're like, okay, going through this experience, you grow in such a way that only people who go through loss can
Mm-hmm.
understand. And I think that's why these support groups are also so good. I think that this is really healing in and of itself because I stopped going to them because, like you just like
So,
life gets in the way.
yeah,
But talking about it, especially when so much time has gone by,
of
like for me,
course.
one, but for you, like
Yeah.
as many years as it's been, it's like you realize, wow, I still remember so many things, and being able to connect with someone who, even though it's different, can like genuinely understand
Yeah.
how deep and dark those feelings are.
Yep.
It's so healing in and of itself.
And, like, saying their name.
Oh my God.
Like, it's crazy to think
Beyond.
about when you tell someone they die, like, they're not asking about the person, they're
Right.
asking about what happened. Like,
Right.
our dads lived incredible lives, cut way too short. Your dad at what, 55, mine
Yeah.
at 43. Like,
Wow.
that's a child. Like, that's
Yeah.
so young. However, like, we are the only people who can carry their legacy. So we
Right.
might as well talk about them. And like, it doesn't have to be sad. It doesn't have to be awkward. Like, how beautiful to
I
connect with
know.
someone.
And it's so funny. Like even at his Shiva, I met so many. He literally had coach buses of coworkers and like employees because he was head of operations at an investment bank, and so he had all of these employees come on coach buses. And I remember talking to so many of them, and like I, after I gave my eulogy and I like made some of the funnier comments about him, like how he could never just
I
land the
was gonna say,
plane.
I need to know what these are.
You know, like he like I said, he was so complex and he was truly the smartest person I've ever met. And that came with, its ups and its downs in terms of he just could never get to the point. And like I made a joke about that, how like in my eulogy, like he even had to explain the history of why 2 + 2 = 4. And I
You're
remember
like, Dad, come on, we got
yeah.
5 minutes
I'm
here.
like, I'm in first grade. I don't need this from you right now. But I remember his coworkers coming up to me and just saying how like they literally would be sitting in meetings with him and like jokingly be like, "Land the plane, Steve, land the plane." And like I was like, it's so nice to see people I never in a million years would have had any reason like engaging with come and like say to me that like they see all of the things that like I saw in my dad. And like
Yeah.
5 years later, we did a reunion for him, and we had so many of our close family friends, and some of my friends, some of my sister's friends, a ton of my mom's friends, and we gave every person an opportunity to stand up and like say a memory that they love about my
Oh,
dad.
I love that.
And it was just like it was so interesting to hear so many different stories that all perfectly summed up like who he was to a T. And like it's happy and it's tragic and it's sad and it's beautiful, but like it just makes me realize like wow, like legacies like really do last, no matter
Mhm.
what, like no matter how much time has passed, like this is who he was through and through, and like that is what people remember. It's not how he left, it was like who he was when he was
Yeah.
here.
Okay, wait, speaking of legacy, it's just you and your sister, right?
Yeah,
So, like, with legacy, do you think about your last name? Like, do you wanna keep your last name? Or if and when you get married, like, have you ever thought about
that
that?
is so interesting, and to be completely honest, my last name is god awful, so no.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't say it, but,
No.
like
To be honest, sorry dad, no. um Lichtenthal is not going to stay in my bloodline. you
I
know
mean, yeah, like, say that 5 times
it
fast.
just exact I can't even do it. I've been on this earth for 27 years. I can't say my last name 5 times fast. No, I think that there's so many other ways that like I can like hold
Yeah.
his legacy, strong, and it's doing things like this, and just like talking about it in my own life. But unfortunately that's not
Okay,
gonna.
bye, Lichtendahl.
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
Okay, wait, now I need to hear, like, some of the things you talked about in your speech that you made fun of him for. Land the plane and
He snored louder than like a
your
train
poor
horn.
mother,
In
no.
No, no, no. I remember
You
because
don't
I'm
have
on
that trait, do you?
God no, God no. I sleep soundly like an angel at
Yeah,
night.
you hear that?
Um,
She's a little baby when she sleeps. You don't even
mhm.
know she's in the room.
But no, my mom, like all I remember growing up, because my room is right next to theirs, was like in the
No,
middle of the night, my mom
shaking.
being like, Steven, Steven, like slapping him. And he's like there was so many times where he ended up on the couch. Like my mom was like, I'm not having it.
I mean, I
Um,
would be your mother. I'd be like, get your own fucking
like
room.
quite literally, like he also was a horrible dancer, but was always like the center of attention, like not in like an obnoxious way. Like that was the thing about him. He was so understated, but like people gravitated towards him in that way.
Mhm.
And I'm like trying, like we would always like do like silly things together. Like we would embarrass my mom and my sister when we would be out. We would like skip down the street
I
arm in
love
arm
that.
together. Like he would the epitome of dad jokes. Like he would always be the one to make like your classic dad joke. For some reason, he was infatuated with the "Bring It Around Town" from SpongeBob,
Stop.
and like would just do it at random. Or like he would jokingly be like, "Margot, don't curse, you bitch," like stuff like that.
Course.
Like just like silly little quirky things. Like I would like I spoke about all that kind of stuff, and the way that I formatted it, which I honestly really it took me a lot of time to be like, how am I gonna like communicate who my dad was to me, to a room of half of people who knew him and half people who are here because they know someone who knew him.
Right.
So I did it in a way that was like talking about all the things my dad was not, and then going into all the things my dad was, to
I
talk more
love
about,
that.
not like my moments and my relationship with him, because at the same time, like, those were sentimental to me and
Of
didn't
course.
need to be like reiterated, I
Mhm.
guess. But it was like, how can I like tell people here who've never met him, like, exactly the type of person he was?
Of course.
And like, it was like playful. Like I said, like, my dad was not a good dancer or a good singer, but he, always knew how to put on a show
Love.
and like stuff like that. So I think that was what really spoke to me the most in those moments.